Next on Conversation at WQED, a champion's homecoming. An emotional return for Pittsburgh hero Danny McCoy. After his sled hockey team wins the gold at the Paralympics in Sochi. Tonight, Danny is here to share his experience and to talk about what he's overcome to fulfill his dream. Danny McCoy and his gold medal on Conversation at WQED. It all starts right now. Danny's laughing because we're going to start crying here in a minute, but with his mom and dad. Good evening. I'm Michael Bartley. Our guest tonight has been playing sled hockey since he was a child. Dan McCoy always had big dreams, but this year he made them happen, winning the gold at the Paralympics in Sochi. The whole country was watching. The whole world was watching. Tonight, Dan and his mom, Angie, and his dad, Mark, are all here. They all were in Sochi, and they're taking your questions, so send them to WQED's Twitter and Facebook pages. We'll get them on the air. Thank you all so much for being here. I know it's been like this whirlwind tour, Dan, but okay, we have to, even your dad's here. This is big. Mr. I can't be on, I don't want to be on television guy, you know, but you got to show us the medal first. Yeah, everyone in the studio was so, check this out. And it's got to weigh almost 10 pounds. There's quite a bit of gold.
It's pretty heavy.
Wow.
I've always said I have to be in my wheelchair every time I wear it, or I'll fall over.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Tell us, just, you know, people were crying in Pittsburgh. They were so happy for you. And the video we showed, we got from KDKA, and we thank them for giving that to us. When you got off the plane in Pittsburgh, I know it was a long flight, but is the adrenaline still going?
Yeah, I mean, that whole flight, it was such a long flight that like there were so many thoughts that were going through my head, like, oh my gosh, I just won a gold medal. It still hasn't sunk in, like at this point, but I mean, it was just starting to sink in, or just to come to my thoughts at that point. And I'd just been thinking, oh my gosh, I won a gold medal. I'm getting to go home. I'll see all my friends and family over the next few weeks here. And when I got off the plane, I like relaxed, because I was like, all right, I'm home.
Right.
I'm in Pittsburgh. There's no more stress or anything. It'll just be all fun and games here, but like from here on out.
We'll talk about the game and the Russia, but everybody's trying to get your attention now here in Pittsburgh and so forth. And we met you, I think, Angie, that might have been, I guess, a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah, about 2 months ago.
And I know you were nervous. Mark was nervous. All of Pittsburgh was nervous. And here he wins the gold. Tell us, you know, take us back to the day of the championship day.
It dragged on, for sure. The game was...
you just wanted to get in there and play.
Yeah, the game, it was an 8 o'clock game. So we every day when we were in Sochi, we woke up early, had at least a 7 o'clock wake up. So that whole day we had, I think, 2 or 3 meals before we even got to the rink. And we got to the rink about 2 hours early, hour and a half, 2 hours early. And that whole time, everyone was just kind of sitting in their stalls waiting for the game to happen. And we brought 17 players, but only 15 could dress for the game. So that whole bus ride over there, we were all thinking, who's going to dress for this game? Like, it's a gold medal game, biggest game of everyone's hockey career. Who's going to dress and everything? And me, like, having this goal for myself since I was 8 years old, I really wanted to play in this game. Like, this was all I was thinking about. This is all I've been thinking about since, like, I was 8 years old. So as soon as we get in the locker room, coach tells everyone to sit down, and he goes, McCoy and another kid, you guys are in.
Oh, really?
Because I had sat the game out, the last semifinal game before the final game.
But you played several games up to that point.
Yeah, I played 3 games out of the 5. So when the coach told me, like, McCoy, you're in, I almost lost it. I just kind of put my head in my hands, and I remember thinking to myself, it's here. Like, let's do this. And I looked at a few of my teammates and just kind of nodded my head, and I was like, we're ready to go here. So waiting that whole, we probably had about an hour and a half just to wait for warm-ups. So waiting that whole time, everyone's kind of just getting loose, getting ready for the game. And then it comes time to put that jersey on with the whole team. And everyone gets their gear on and waits to put the jersey on until everyone's ready. So it's a big team thing to put that jersey on. And as soon as I put that jersey on, I just exhaled like a really big sigh of relief, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to go here.
I know everyone's telling you this, but everybody in Pittsburgh watched. Okay, it was so great that it was national television, international television. You played quite a bit during this game. You played all 3 periods, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the coach throughout every game had some decisions to make whether he wanted to play one line more than the other. But thankfully, I got a decent amount of playing time in the last game, and I tried to make every shift count as much as I could. So
we want to show one more time the actual medal ceremony, and we have some pictures of you, and I know you two were there. I'm going to get you. Just hold on here a second, okay? But so, what was going through your mind when they played our national anthem, and you beat a team that I think was favored to beat you guys? Is that true, or was that sort of an even deal?
I think we were I think favored over Russia, but the fact that it was in their country just made it that much more difficult for us, I think.
Here you are.
Yeah.
They put the medal around your neck.
Yeah.
Our flag goes up. What was going on?
I just remember thinking this is the greatest day of my life. I made sure when we were singing the national anthem here, I made sure I was screaming it. I wasn't even trying to sound like I was singing. I was just screaming at the top of my lungs.
Wow.
And just I had my arms around I see our captain to the left of me there. I had my arm around him and another guy to the right of me, and I just remember thinking, this is it. I did it. And I looked over at my family as much as I could just to show them like how happy I was, and just to pretty much give them a look of thank you, everything, because I realized how much they sacrificed to get me here. They all traveled thousands of miles to see me play in a few games. So
so it was emotional for you too.
Oh my gosh, so emotional. Yeah, yeah. It's still hard to put into words. The whole feeling of it and everything.
You can let that rest. Cause I know you're tired of holding it. I just want everyone to see. You don't have to hold it for the whole show.
It's okay.
So I know. Okay, how emotional was this? It was a long way, very expensive, but look what happened here.
You want to answer this one?
It was an emotional roller coaster. Yeah, I mean the whole context that Dan is setting up, where this is the highest level of competition in sled hockey that any Paralympic athlete can achieve. So, so in context, here it is. He's worked 10, 12 years. We're going to Sochi. We don't know if he's going to play. So you realize the outcome was great, but going into it, we didn't know if we were even going to get to see our son put the jersey on and hit the ice. The coach had very difficult decisions to make. So it was truly a matter of just trying to endure the first game when he didn't play and just relax and understand that he's on the team. But then the release of emotion in the second game.
Because it's a privilege to be picked. And no matter, because
absolutely.
I'm not blowing smoke here. This was a huge deal just to get picked, right?
Right. And so when you put it in context, out of the thousands of players that there are now in the United States that are playing sled hockey at a pretty competitive level, so 9 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies are going to dress for that game. So being one of 17 is a huge honor. But there's a huge difference between that and actually getting to play in the game. And so the outcome was great, but it was absolutely a roller coaster.
Well, and he brought up about the game, the first game he dressed. We're in the stands. And we didn't know whether he was going to dress or not. And when he hit the ice, both of us just lost it. The emotions, we both started crying.
Full tilt man cry. Yeah.
It was a man cry.
Had to have been. Oh my.
Yeah, it was just because you realize how hard he worked, and he did. He sacrificed. There were a lot of times where, going through middle school and high school and college, that he gave up a lot of social things to do with friends because he had to be either lifting or training or on the ice. It was hard.
And then there are the high school teams, and they play some key games.
From the anchor desk to the announcer's booth, Bill Hillgrove has had a front row seat for some of Pittsburgh's greatest moments in sports history. Tonight, the voice of the Steelers and the Panthers sits down for a conversation.
Nobody has ever done it the way he did.
Super Bowls, record-breaking plays, even jazz. Tonight, we're talking about it all, and we're taking your questions, too, straight from social media. Conversation at WQED starts now. just said, look at that old bow tie. Good evening. I'm Michael Bartley. Bill Hillgrove is usually giving fans the play-by-play, but tonight he's swapping his seat in the booth for a seat at our table. We have plenty of questions for him, but we want to hear from you as well. Send your questions to Twitter and Facebook. We'll get them on the air right now. Let's welcome the voice of the Steelers and the Pitt Panthers, Bill Hillgrove. What a pleasure to have you.
Well, the pleasure's all mine, Michael. This is kind of a gas.
This is fun, isn't it?
It sure is.
There's so much talk about your career. It's a celebrated, honored career. You've become an icon in this marketplace. But I want to start back, Garfield. You're a boy from Garfield who really made it big. And I want to tell you right off the bat, I'm doing a documentary on the nuns, the sisters, all the different orders. Do you know how many nuns have said to me, do you know Bill Hillgrove? And you have this amazing relationship with the nuns and the old neighborhood.
My aunt, Sister Mary Bernard, was a sister of charity. And really, she had a hand in my getting into the business. And it's a long story, and I won't bore you with it. But I ended up at the Pittsburgh Diocesan Radio TV School at her behest. And I thought I'd learn how to fix radios and TVs. My dad was an electronics guy. And no, she handed me a script and said, read it. And I read it, and she said, just what I'm looking for. And I said, what's that, sister? She said, a 13-year-old brat.
Is that right?
And I said, well, I don't need a script for that.
They were into diction. The nuns were into diction.
Yes, they certainly were.
The passion, I don't know if you realize, and I suspect you do, that, whether it's the Steelers or Pitt football or Pitt basketball, whatever the game is, we're Pittsburgh people, and we want them to win. But we feel the passion from the local play-by-play guy. I want to take you back to 1976. I know you'll remember this. Our viewers will remember this. Tony Dorsett's run when he became the NCAA's all-time rushing guy. It was against Navy, and it was during the 76 national championship team, right? Let's take a look.
Dorsett on his feet into the end zone. He goes in for a 32-yard touchdown run, and the Panther bench is down there. Everybody has run into the end zone, risking a penalty, but they're going to congratulate Tony Dorsett. Even the Navy cannon has gone off. Tony Dorsett has become the all-time leading rusher in the history of football.
Unbelievable. It still gives me chills. Doesn't it make a difference that you're a Pittsburgh guy?
Sure. It comes naturally because I grew up rooting for the Panthers and the Steelers and the Pirates, and so therefore, it's easy passion.
What about the Steelers? Then becomes the Steelers. Is it true that Dan Rooney sort of gave you the personal nod? He was the one. What's the backstory on that deal?
I'm told that he used my tape to compare it to the tapes that the Steelers were receiving to find Jack Fleming's replacement. And one day a member of the sales staff called me and said, Mr. Rooney keeps asking for your tape. And I said, what does that mean? And I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to be a candidate for a job that I'm not seeking. I had a full plate. I had Pitt football and basketball. I did the sports on Channel 4, and then all of a sudden that changed.
And Jack Fleming, you worked with him.
And I knew him, and he was a friend, and we socialized. And out of respect for Jack, I wouldn't seek that job. But it kind of came to me, and yeah, I'm glad it happened. It's a much bigger stage. Those ESPN cuts, the college game doesn't get the attention the NFL does, and that's kind of been very satisfying.
Next on Conversation at WQED, he's a Hollywood actor who appears on television, in movies.
Let me guess. It wasn't the ghost of Jimi Hendrix?
And on and off Broadway. But what Pittsburgh native David Conrad is perhaps most known for is his unabashed love and support for his hometown, its history, and its people. Tonight, David Conrad sits down for a conversation to talk about our city and his career, including his latest projects. He's also taking your questions straight from social media.
Do you have what it takes to pull the trigger?
Conversation at WQED starts now. Good evening, I'm Michael Bartley. Our guest tonight is a talented actor who could call Hollywood or New York home, but instead, David Conrad lives here in his hometown of Pittsburgh, and tonight he's making time to sit down with us to talk about that decision, his career, and more. David, we are so happy to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
You're really a Pittsburgh guy, and do you realize, we're talking about this earlier, do you realize Pittsburgh people are so happy that you've stayed here and you live here and you call Pittsburgh home?
I think they're happy when the Steelers win or when their kids get into college. Me, they're like, oh,
But
that's
when
nice.
they see you on television or in a movie, they take great pride in that.
I hope so. I only in the way that I would take pride in Pittsburgh. I mean, I love the place, and I'd like them to think I'm being honest about that. When I feel like they do feel that, then that's great.
Do they stop you on the street sometimes, and if so?
Once in a while, I'll be at a dinner and somebody will come up and say, my daughter and I used to watch you on the show, and it's nice, it's sweet, it's fun to talk to people, and it's always funny. You never expect it. No matter how many times it happens, it's still a surprise.
Right. You grew up in Swissville.
Yeah, well, I was born in Edgewood. I grew up in Edgewood, but
Okay.
I say Swissville
You
because
say Swissville, Edgewood all
well,
the
because
time.
it gives me street cred. No, half the time people go Edgewood what, or they say Edgeworth, and they think I'm from Sewickley. So
Woodland Hills,
I was there for a year.
1 year.
1 year.
And then were you a bad boy or something?
I was kind of a bad boy. I was. I mean, to be quite honest, and since it's a Pittsburgh show, I was an unhappy kid. I was a really tough son, I think, for my parents.
What does that mean? What way?
I was, really closed off. I had a lot of just problems kind of engaging. And my parents had the guts to take the chance to try to get me to some school that could, A, help me or that I could focus in. And the headmaster of that school gave me enough money so I could go there. And I ended up going to Kiski Prep, and it really changed my life. Like, honestly.
Talk about, so Woody High for a year.
Yeah.
And then
a prep school,
and then
coat and tie every day.
Kiski Prep, coat and tie.
It was great.
And you fell in love with that school.
Yeah, I truly believe that given the right circumstances, if you put children together in a way that they can trust each other, trust to see each other fail, lose, and then support each other again, you create an ideal environment for education.
You're living in Braddock.
Yeah, when I'm in Pittsburgh, that's where I go.
And how did that come about?
I'd had places, I'd lived other places in Pittsburgh, and I was trying to figure out, or I was trying to see where I'd be in some sense the most useful or most comfortable in terms of what I could do in Pittsburgh. And I feel like I did a lot of dumb stuff. I think I, bought some really stupidly large places and, was hanging out in, I don't know, I felt like the part of Pittsburgh I cared about and I felt like I could do the most difference or that I could bring the most change, or if I could bring any change, would be the Mon Valley, where I think I'd, when I was a kid, that's where in some sense we were the most afraid of, because it was, where the most economic dislocation was happening, where the schools were falling apart, where people were losing their jobs, people were committing suicide, moving out of town. And I thought, why not go back to the place that scared you in some sense the most when you were a kid? My own place, Swissvale, Edgewood, Rankin. I wanted to go back to that and see, okay, it's one thing, I could live in Shadyside and I can go to a fundraiser for the symphony. That's the easiest thing in the world. And God bless the symphony, but could I go back to the place that I was scared of,
That's
Does
fascinating.
that demon still live in me? And actually, it brings me back to Kiski. Is when I was at Kiski, the greatest advice I ever got was, here's your fear, walk right into it. Breathe in and figure out, what are you afraid of? Is it the thing or some reflection in you? And so, I went down there and I thought, we look at these towns, we look at Braddock and Homestead and Donora, Duquesne, and people think of them, frankly, as dirty, as depressed, as messed up. And they are as human as we are. They are the real towns of this place, of this city. They're the places that the economic might was built in. And I felt like I wanted to go there and if I could bring some kind of development there, if I could do something good there, then I'd spent my time well.
One of my favorite
Long
towns,
answer.
Clairton. I love Clairton.
Yeah.
Okay, and people look down on Clairton sometimes, but I think I'm hoping things improve there.
Yeah.
But you guys are doing a lot of good in Braddock.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I would say the people who really spend their time there, Jeb Feldman, John Fetterman, Kevin now, I just kind of tag along with them, and if they need something, they call me, or if they want something from me, I'll try to do it. I'm not an on-the-ground worker. The guys who do the urban farming there, the guys who are starting the brewery there, those are the real people. I can talk for them. I can spread a word about what they do. I think for me, what I like to say is that, people often say, oh, the steel industry, oh, those years, that's all behind us. It isn't behind us. Actually, what made Pittsburgh great was the authenticity and the sort of richness of its small neighborhoods. The fact that in a 10-block area, you could have a full life. You could have schools, you could have a church, you could have stores, you could have a culture.
The neighborhoods
community.
were like living in small towns.
That's happening
That's
again.
what it was.
That's the whole thing in the new America.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do.
These kids in their 20s and 30s, they want to come into these towns and remake them into an America they believe in. You see it in Lawrenceville. You see it in Friendship. You see it in Garfield. You're seeing it in Braddock. You see it a little bit in Homestead. And it's really thrilling to me to see people who aren't Pittsburghers come here, look at those towns and go, this is everything we could dream of. If we can just work on this block by block, building by building, school by school, you really create what to me is a sustainable, a sustainable America, a sustainable democracy, a new image of how little towns can work again, rather than thinking you've got to run to the suburbs.
You should be congratulated for your involvement. There's no question about it, David Conrad. All right, I got to let the viewers in here. You're hitting the nerve of a lot of the viewers.
Yeah.
Twitter and Facebook. Okay, let me get this Twitter question in. I missed your play in New York City this past year. Any future theater plans on the horizons? Because you do television, you do motion pictures, and you do quite a bit of theater.
Yeah, I've been trying to adapt a production of Hamlet. I wanted to work with the script in a way that, every Hamlet you ever see is cut. And so I've been working on a kind of a cutting of it with some friends, and we've been doing readings in New York City. I'd like to direct it and play Claudius, who's the stepfather of Hamlet, the uncle of Hamlet. And I'm hoping that will work out.
Do you prefer theater, Broadway? You were in the Irish Classical Theater here in Pittsburgh for a number of productions, right?
I only worked with Irish and Classical once in 2000. God, what was it, 4 maybe?
Is that when you got hurt?
Yeah, I busted my hand on stage.
In the middle of a performance?
Just before the end of the first act, I broke my hand on stage.
Wow.
They ran me to Presbyterian, I think, in Pitt.
Presby, yeah.
Set my finger, sent me back.
No.
And I was able to do the third act.
Are you?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
That's true? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was crazy. For some reason, there was nobody in the emergency room. I just got lucky.
Oh, my.
Total miracle.
No, it was because you were a big shot actor.
No, there was literally no one there. They had no idea. They were like, who's this idiot with his finger sticking out like this?
So you do prefer theater?
If I, to be honest, come on. If I did, if I had the guts to be a true theater actor, I'd be living in a garret in New York somewhere, Chicago, and doing it, or here. I'd be like Marty Giles doing plays here in Pittsburgh. Or Jeff Carpenter, or, people in Pittsburgh, Pat Jordan, doing the real thing. I'm not, I'm a TV actor. I've done some film, but I love doing theater in the times off that I've had. I love being in a room with real people reacting and breathing back at you and booing or yelling or, that's the best.
That's live and probably fun.
Yeah. And it's just you, right? There's no cameras.
What about movies?
I've done so few. I've done a few movies. They're amazing because there's these giant behemoths, and they take so much time to do them, whereas TV shoots so quickly. But everybody says it. They're really good scripts. They're really good stories. The interesting shows are on television.
You had a huge role in Men of Honor.
I had a pretty decent role.
That was a huge role.
It was 1999.
Look at you,
Most of the people who were twittering, you weren't even born then.
No. But what De Niro was, you had that. I remember
De Niro and I were born on the same day, and the first day I worked for Men of Honor was my birthday, August 17th, and we were talking. I was rehearsing with him, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he goes, "Here we got something in common," and I was like, "Yeah, happy birthday." He goes, "Happy birthday," and I was like, "Yeah,
really?"
And he goes, "Let's go out and have dinner," and I was like, "Yeah, let's go out and have dinner, Mr.
And you
De Niro."
did?
Yeah, he was great. He's incredibly professional. He's quiet. He's super smart. His father was a famous abstract painter. Everybody thinks he's this sort of ghetto kid, but he's, he's streetwise, but he's a smart guy. And the cool thing, I think the thing that really I went up to him and I asked him, I said, I've met most of the people who were in the Deer Hunter, and I always wanted, before I finished the sentence, and this always happens with actors who were in the Deer Hunter, they go, oh man, best thing I ever worked on.
Really?
You're from Pittsburgh, right? And I was like, yeah. And they go, oh, I loved working on that show. Meryl Streep, George Dunda, Robert De Niro.
What a picture, oh my.
Yeah, all of them shake their head and go, yeah, it was the greatest thing we ever did. So De Niro was really happy that, I was from the town where he'd made this film.
Do any actors inspire you? Do you look up to?
Yeah, Kate Blanchett, somebody like that. My God. Meryl Streep, still the greatest. The greatest piece of acting I ever saw was Meryl Streep sitting next to me. I filled in as a reader once to do the reading of Angels in America.
Wow.
I was just a reader, right? I was just a guy. And she sat next to me and read her part, which you see in the movie. And literally, it was like magic happening next to you. I just was staring at her going, how is this person doing this?
Intensity and pressure. Success and satisfaction. Pitt men's basketball coach Jamie Dixon knows what it takes to win. Tonight, he sits down for a conversation to talk about his winning ways, high expectations, and his game plan for the tough new Atlantic Coast Conference. He's also taking your questions from Twitter and Facebook. Conversation at WQED starts now. Well, good evening. I'm Michael Bartley. Our guest tonight's already talking. He can't stop talking already. He's guided the Pitt men's basketball team to a Big East championship, conference titles, and deep appearances into the NCAA tournament. Tonight, head coach Jamie Dixon is here to talk about some new challenges the Panthers face this year. He's also taking your questions from social media. So right now, send your comments, your questions, WQED Twitter and Facebook pages. We'll get them on the air as soon as we can. Jamie, thank you so much. This is so fun, and I learned tonight you're a second-generation Irish guy. All four grandparents from Ireland.
Yeah, I guess it's a little more common in Pittsburgh than maybe in Los Angeles,
Very
where I
common
grew up.
here.
Yeah.
When you get the head coaching job, a program of that caliber, how does that work? Does Steve Peterson call you? Does Mark Nordenberg call you? Who says, Jamie, we want you to stay here and be the head coach. We're investing in you. Do you remember?
I got the phone call, and I was up in the office working, and they told me to come down to the cathedral, and I met down there, and Barry Rorson came down with me, and that's when they told me that I got the job. Chancellor Jerry Cochran and Mark Bain was there at the time, so Mark was there as well. And so that's when I found out. And actually the other day we were driving down the south side, and I pointed out Kupka's, the bar on the side there, and not that I frequent there often, but when we left, everybody was trying to find out who had the job, and Barry and I, that was our first meeting, was at Kupka's on the side of the street right after we got the job, and they wanted to hide us from the media and keep us away from her. So we went out and had an iced tea on the street and put our plans together.
No kidding.
On the south side.
I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain it's pronounced Chupka's.
Chupka's, it is.
Isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it's
Isn't
Chupka's.
it? See, this is a Pittsburgh guy talking to a Hollywood kid star.